Welcome to the next AIM session, and today we're going to go over the anatomy of a research poster that you would present at a conference or a research day and that sort of thing. They're actually fairly simple. Your university or institution, odds are, has some templates. It's good to check with the communication department or look online to see what they have posted so that you can use those as a place to start. A lot of posters are made in PowerPoint. Some other people like to use Adobe Illustrator, other kinds of programs. PowerPoint is really a good bargain basement place to start. If you haven't made a lot of posters, it makes your life a little bit easier, so I would strongly suggest that you do that. Now with any kind of research poster, you want to know what's the proper size, and that's a very important thing. The conference you're attending should have some size rules. Most poster printers that you would go through to get the poster actually created have limits as well. So you really want to check that out to make sure that you're not trying to make something that's going to be way too big to try to pull off. Usually 4 feet is the typical distance of most poster printers. So if you stay 4 feet or less, you should be fine. You can usually make them longer depending on which directions that you want to make them go in. So you could have an 8 foot by 4 foot poster if you're making a huge one, or the more typical 3 foot by 4 foot poster that's done. Now you really want to observe those rules because there's nothing worse than being that jerk whose poster is way too big for the slot that you have. It's a great way to make people not like you, which is not a great way to launch your career. Your work is not that important that it should actually take up everybody else's space. So with a research poster, you've got some very basic component parts. You've got your title here at the top, and with that you've got your authors, your department, your university affiliations. It's good to have your university institutional logo here. Try to use their color scheme as well. It's in keeping with the branding, and in some places it's actually expected. So you want to be kind of conscious of that as well. You want to make sure you have everyone's name spelled correctly, and you have everyone's proper affiliations down. Why? Because it's very important, for institutes to be recognized properly. It's very important for authors to have their names put in properly. You wouldn't want your name misspelled or misrepresented either. So anyways, you want to use nice large fonts for your title. You want people to be able to read it from afar, so you do not want one of those crazily long titles for your research poster. You want to keep it nice and tight so it's good and clear from a distance, and people can find you and come check you out, ask you questions, and admire your intelligence. So it's the same breakdown that you would have as your abstract that you submitted to this conference. And we'll have a podcast about those as well, kind of an abstract template to use. So your background, methods, results, and discussion. Your background is pretty straightforward. So let me enlarge this. You want to start with the broad context for your work. And you want to spell broad correctly, not bored. See, typos. You always have to watch those things. How they lead to your specific questions that you have. State your questions, state your hypothesis. You want your background to really be a nice little standalone about why did you look, why does it matter? And you want your hypothesis to always be stated nice and clearly down at the end. Some people will bold it or italicize it, dealer's choice. But you really want it to be somewhat apparent for people to see. Now, with the methods section, very straightforward. Who or what did you study? What did you measure? What was your intervention, if any? What was your outcome? How did you analyze your data? You want, again, just enough of a thumbnail that people can figure it out. You don't want to go into too much crazy detail in this. Results section. What did you find? Always start with answering your question first. Did you corroborate your hypothesis or not? It's a great place to start with, and that's what people really care about. they're at your poster, not to go through a thesis presentation. They're at your poster to get a quick fact, a neat finding that they can then take home to their own work. It's always good to try to make a figure out of your main finding, a graph, a schematic, but really something visual, because you're going to have text learners, verbal learners, and visual learners. So you really want to do something to kind of accommodate all those people so they can get your take-home message and walk away with it. So you would always have some space here next door to your results section where you could input your main figure or figures. Always have a figure caption that stands alone so people don't have to go rooting around. At conferences, people will be busy. Some people will just dip in, look at your figures, read the captions, and move on. So you really want to be kind of conscious of that and make sure that you allow them the time that they need. So for the discussion section, summarize what you found. What does it mean? What are the implications? Why should we care? Is there a treatment implication? Is there a diagnostic implication? Do we have a better understanding of the illness that could lead to new interventions? What's the next logical step? Your future directions you can put here. It's always nice to have that in. I always like to end with some limitations and future directions. The limitations provides that context, makes people feel comfortable that you're being nice and clear about what your work is about, and not too unjudgmental about your own process. You want to be able to show what your limitations are, but you also want to lead those into, well, what would we do next? So some general poster rules. Use all the logos that you need. There's usually space down at the bottom that you can use for this down here. Put your contact information in there. If you have a website, great. If you have an email that you don't mind people knowing about, put that in there as well, so people can actually get hold of you. You'll be surprised how many questions you'll get later, or people that want to contact you to collaborate, or they want to put you down as a reviewer for a work that's similar from their group, and that sort of good stuff. It's a great, important part of networking. Very important. So you want people to be able to find you very easily. Now, your poster should be enough that it stands alone, much like your abstract does, which again, your abstract serves as the basic bones for your poster. You want to have a short kind of elevator explanation to walk people through it, because some people, again, will just be able to pop by and just want the quick hit. And you want a medium version where you can kind of walk people through it who have a little bit more time and can ask you questions. And there's no harm when somebody comes up to your poster saying, hey, do you want me to walk you through this? I can give you the quick elevator explanation, or we can talk about it in a bit more detail. They'll let you know if they have time. And it's a great way to make a good connection with somebody as well. The big rule of thumb, never ever cram too many mountains of text. It's really sad when you see basically a written paper posted as a poster where it's just blocks and blocks of text. Nobody's going to want to read that. Nobody's going to want to stand there and go through it. You're going to catch way more flies with nice crisp bullets of a line or two each, to your poster. You catch more flies with honey, for sure, than you do with giant big old blocks of text. Bigger fonts are always better. Always go for the maximum that will fit, that's still clean and clear. People are going to have to read this from a distance. If your poster is really popular, you could end up with a crowd of at least 2-3 people deep, and you've got people craning their necks trying to read stuff. If you've got a 12-point font on there, hopefully someone will roll up the conference program and beat you with it. You should never have a font that small on any of your posters. No fanciful fonts. This is not the time to bust out your Comic Sans or your Star Wars Jedi Knight font. You want to keep things really crisp, clean, with not a lot of filigree on your fonts. Helvetica, Arial type fonts are fantastic for posters. They're nice, they're crisp, clean, easy to read, especially from a distance. Why do you think most signs use Helvetica and Helvetica style fonts? Because they're easy to read from a distance, from movement, everything. So it's a great way to make it easy to catch people's eye and to hold it, once you do. Now, with the poster process, you want to allow time for printing. The day before you leave or you catch your flight, you don't want to submit your poster for printing. That's a great way to have a craptacular poster. So what you want to do is get it printed in enough time that it allows you to take a look at a draft. If the poster services printers that you use do that, they usually can make a little standard 8x10 size draft that you can go over just to make sure all the figures come out, the colors look good, all that sort of stuff. Here at the University of Calgary, our multimedia services does this, and it's a fantastic service. It really adds that last chance look to make sure you've got as few typos as humanly possible in your poster, and that your figures look good and solid and your colors accurate, crisp, and clear. It really gives you that chance to really have that last minute proofing. Now, when it comes to references on a poster, I'm not a huge fan of having big, giant, long reference lists. If you really want to do it, you can have a line that says references on request and have a few pages, copies printed out, that you can hang up underneath the poster. It's better to use your space for your findings and your figures to be as big and clear as possible, rather than losing, a quarter of your poster or 10% of your poster even to a big, giant, long reference list. You want to be nice and clear and not crowded, really not crowded. So with posters too, you'll get a lot of questions. Again, it's a great place to actually have a bit more of an informal discussion about what your work is. So it's good just to try to relax, ask questions back. If you don't immediately recognize the name of the person asking you questions, that's okay. It's fair game to say, well, what do you do, so you can learn what their context is for coming to you to ask questions. If they're a hardcore brain imager, for example, it's good to know that. Then you can not have to explain certain things and hit other things a little bit harder. If they're great at psychopharmacology, again, you address it from that point of view. So you always want to ask people about themselves. It's also a good way to get to know some people, do some networking, and all that sort of important stuff. So that's the basics of a research poster. You want to keep it nice, crisp, clean, simple, and clear. As I hope this was clear as well. And I'm not too embarrassed about that typo in there. Yikes. See, it happens to the best of us. So even when you go to present your poster, if you notice a typo, don't let it shake you. Just walk people through it, have a laugh over it if they point it out. Okay? Thank you, and have a good conference.